I can share with you how to get your book written. Book or not, I'm going to share with you how you can create a book that can ultimately be either a lead generator. It could be something that you're leaving as a legacy for when you pass on from this world. It could be a product that you're creating that you're intending to utilize as a maybe a family legacy. Maybe you're writing a book to give away to prospective clients, which others have done. Perhaps you've always had a desire to write fiction and you're thinking about writing a fiction book. But either way, I am an author mentor. I am the author of 18 books, most recently released my 18th book. It's called The Demand Principle. And if you don't have a copy, get one. Highly recommend you get a copy of this book. The response and the reviews have been off the charts. Amazing. And so this is a book I recommend. Celine will put the link for you right on the Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube page so that you can get the bonuses as well that we decided to extend and make available to you and for you by going to thedemandprinciple.com. But today we're talking about you. And of course, demanding what you desire in your life is talking about you as well. So today we're talking about you and how you can actually create a book that can be a resource, a tool, education, information, a combo of all of those things so that it can really help build your credibility. You see, I just mentioned I've written 18 books so far. And if I think back to when I wrote my first book, one of the things that was a surprising experience was saying to people, when they'd ask me, what do you do for a living? And quite often my answer would be, I am an author. And it creates intrigue with others. Oh, you're an author? What do you write? And so that really involves opening up a conversation for others as well. If you're an entrepreneur or you're a business person, or maybe you're working somewhere now, but you would love to perhaps do your own thing, or maybe you're somebody who would just love to create a source or multiple sources of income, which is absolutely possible for you. It's possible for anyone. So one of the things, we're here talking about how you can create a book and how this can become something that you utilize to build credibility and visibility in the world, how it can help you build your business as well. But there are so many other ripple effects of writing a book and you being an author and being known in the world. And my good friend Bob Proctor says that everyone should write a book. And he heard that comment way back in the early 1980s. When someone had said to him, hey, Proctor, you've got a book in you. And it just really invited a new way of thinking. And I've also heard him say that if he had known how impactful a book would have been to his business, that he would have written it a lot earlier than he did. And the truth is, a book is a very valuable thing to have, not only for your business, but for yourself as well. And part of the reason why it's such a valuable thing for you to do for yourself personally is because it really builds a great sense of accomplishment. And also it just causes you to feel better about yourself. Another benefit is when you put together ideas, as I did with the demand principle, when you put together these ideas, because you're collecting ideas or putting your ideas down onto paper based on your own experience, etc., what you're doing is you're re-inviting these ideas and these concepts to be in your consciousness as well. So every time you study, every time you share something of value comes back to you. It's a natural law of the universe. That's the way it works. So when you create something of value, the rewards are going to come back to you. Sometimes you don't know what way they're going to come back to you or how they're going to come back to you. Sometimes they come back to you with an avalanche of good. Sometimes they come back to you with in just these wonderful and surprising ways. I remember, just as I'm saying that, I'm reflecting back to a time when my son, who's now 27 years of age, when he was in school. And I became an author when my son, Michel, he wasn't even 10 years old when I first became an author. And I remember one time he came home from school and he brought some of his friends with him to our home, and they were standing in our family room and they were looking at our bookshelves. And on one of the bookshelves in our family room at that time, there were books that I had written. And I actually wrote 3 books within a period of 11 months. I wrote, self published, and released my first 3 books within 11 months. And what's interesting about that is, it took me a while to really get to the point of feeling confident enough to write a book, because I really didn't know what was required to write a book. I do not consider myself a great writer, but I give thanks to God that God has blessed us with these amazing people on this earth called editors. We actually have one who's on the Facebook Live event right now, Catherine Young, who's a wonderful woman that I know, who's an extremely effective writer and editor. And so when I wrote my first book, even though I didn't consider myself a great writer, you don't have to be a great writer to write a book, because there's these wonderful people called editors who can really clean up your work and make it good and make it, just make it work right for you. And so, I was blessed in the beginning to find an editor that I loved and worked with. And so I self-published my first book. And when I self-published my first book, it's almost like there's almost like a little bug that you get. And that bug is to write another book and then another book and another book. And here I am 18 books later, which I never thought. I mean, this wasn't an intention many, many years ago to write X number of books. Originally, the goal was to simply write one book and bring that book out, which led to a second book, which led to a third book, which led to a fourth book and a fifth, et cetera, and so on. And it's not that this entire process of writing a book is necessarily an easy one. And I'm very cautious with how I'm saying that. I believe it's simple. It's extremely simple. But the challenge that many people have is not only making a decision, because as Don Shula has said, it is the start that stops most people. So part of the challenge and the reason why people don't write their book is because they don't start. Another challenge is because their paradigms are in the way. So what are those paradigms that literally stop people from writing a book or stop people from taking action toward getting their book done? It's a variety of different paradigms, and it doesn't have to be all of these paradigms, simple paradigm. And here's a paradigm that I've heard from many, many people over the years, and it's a paradigm that I had myself. And of course, I replaced it. And I'll talk about replacing these paradigms for authors in a moment. So the paradigm that I have found that many, many authors have or have had even before they started to write is the paradigm of really being exposed, right? Because when you write your book, and if you're writing a book that's a nonfiction type of book, when you write that book, now your information's gone out to the world. So as an example, the demand principle is now out in the world. People from all over the world, and I don't know exactly how many countries now, but people from all over the world have been buying and reading this book. So one of the challenges that people are faced with is they're concerned about what other people will think. And I've learned that it doesn't matter what other people think. And my recommendation is to put your best foot forward, to put your best work, into your book, because it is an expression of you in the world. And I know Bob Proctor has said, you write a book and you're recognized instantly as someone who's credible, as someone who is an expert. It's a very valuable thing to do. And even if you don't write a great book, you're still recognized as an expert because you've published a book and you've released a book to the world. And so my recommendation, I know it is Bob's too, is to create the best quality book that you possibly can so that you can release it to the world. But that's one of the paradigms, is people are concerned about what will other people think or what will other people say. And so I'm just wondering if it looks like YouTube is saying the connection here is unstable. So Celine, it's back. Okay, it's back. So that's one of the paradigms. One of the paradigms is this belief that about what other people think, or people are concerned about what other people think. So that needs to be thrown out with the garbage, because that doesn't serve you whatsoever. You cannot please all the people all the time. And when you do produce your best work, you are you're going to be exposed. It's going to be out there in the world, and people will get to see who you are. And the other thing to keep in mind is that when you are releasing your book to the world, that this is really a reflection of you, right? And you get how many chances to make a first, and recommend that you put your best work into a book before you bring it to the world. By the way, we are running a marathon in July. Now, it's not a race marathon or a running marathon or a cycle marathon. This is a different kind of marathon. We're doing something called the Author Marathon, and you can find out more about that by going to theauthormarathon.com, and Celine will post the link for you here. Hey, Kayla, good to see you here. And so the reason why, I mean, we were really inspired. I say we, it was me. I was inspired to create this thing called the Author Marathon because I had decided, many, many years ago to write a book. And if we go back in time, we can go back to approximately the year 2000. So in the year 2000, it just turned, brand new century. And I had found myself in a place where I thought, I really want to bring something of value to the world. I decided that at that point, I had already been studying personal development for over 20 years. At that point, it's been over 40 now. And after 20 years or over 20 years of personal development study, I really felt that what the world needed was a perspective that was on how to create success in your life from a layman's terms understanding, very, very simple understanding. And so I was inspired to write the book on being the creator of your destiny. So the idea had come to me to create that book. And what had occurred is that because I'd never done it before, because I didn't have anyone to guide me like I do now for other authors, I allowed my paradigms to really, stop me, kind of like Don Shula quote that I just mentioned a moment ago, to stop me from moving forward. So after about a year and a half really playing with this idea, I'm going to write a book, I finally said, enough is enough. Enough is enough. I'm going to get this book done. And I had approached the month of October. So I decided that during October, and this is back in 2001, I am going to write my book this month. Now, I had never written a book before. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just, did some research, did some study, and I got on with the work and made a decision that I would commit myself to write this book. So in the month of October, I decided that I would get up earlier every morning. I got up at 5:30 in the morning and I would write for an hour. And that was a discipline that I wasn't currently involved in, but I decided to do it because I felt it would be very effective for me to get the work done. And at the time, I was a single mom with my young son. And of course, he is my priority in my life, always has been my priority in my life, always will be my priority in my life. I just love being a mom. I think it's the greatest gift I've ever been given. And so I didn't write on the weekends. I just made a decision that I'm going to write 5:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday, and Saturday and Sunday I'm not writing because it was all about my son, Michelle, and investing quality time with him. And of course, getting up at 5:30 in the morning was not sacrificing any mother-son time either. And it wasn't affecting the work that I was doing in my business at that time either. And so by the end of the month, the end of October, I had written my very first book. And at that point, I handed it over to a wonderful editor, and she did her magic. And then I released the book the following year, early in the year. And then I was inspired to write a second book and then a third book. And of course, the rest is history. But we decided to do this special information session here today to really move you into action. We launched this new offering, 26 days to get your book written, because I've done it before. I've actually written a book in less time than that. I've had my clients write a book in less time than that. I mean, if you're watching this live right now, I'm here, I'm at the lake, I'm at the cottage. And one of my clients, a lady from Melbourne, Australia, her name is Susanna, I met her when I was speaking at a conference in Toronto, and she came up to Ottawa. She worked with me in a private mentoring capacity, and she came up here to Ottawa, and she stayed with me right here at the cottage, and we worked on her book right here in this environment. And she had said to me that her intention was to go back to Australia 7 days later as an author. And that's what she did. She wrote her book in 7 days. And now she's a very successful consultant. She's running her own business. She's doing really, really well with it. And she got inspired. So when we think about the authors that have really created success in their life and meaning they've produced their books or completed their books, it's quite often because they made a decision to do it, they got on with the work, and they stuck with it until it was completed. And so we decided we're going to help people with that. We're going to really create an environment where people can get together and run this marathon. You see, people love doing marathons because of the synergy and the energy of getting involved with a whole bunch of other people that are doing it at the same time. And so we've got many people that have already signed up for the author marathon. And so I see there's a question here. What is the first step? The first step is get yourself registered for the author marathon. Go to theauthormarathon.com. And I just mentioned a moment ago what the steps are. One is to make a decision you're going to do it. So that's a phenomenal question. I really appreciate you for asking that question. So make a decision you're going to do it, like theauthormarathon.com. And we've intentionally kept the investment very, very low. And we've had many people comment on how inexpensive it is. I've never offered an author program at this significantly low investment before. I don't know if we're going to do it again or when we're going to do it again. We may do it again. It certainly won't be at that low investment. It may be, I don't know. But anyways, now is the time. And it's a perfect time. It's a perfect time. In some countries, it's summer right now. It's a beautiful time to write your book as well. It's such an incredible thing to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this start date. So people are registering now. They're going to be receiving all the guidance and the recommendations and my teachings on how to write their book. It's primarily nonfiction books and any kind of nonfiction book. It could be children's books as well, but probably not as appropriate for children's books. But anyone who wants to write a nonfiction book, and nonfiction book are books that are based on real events or real life events. My books are all nonfiction. So the Demand Principle is a nonfiction book. And nonfiction type of books are generally the kind of books that fit entrepreneurs, speakers, consultants, coaches, and things like that. They're definitely the right genre for anyone to write their book in. So I see we've got a number of people that are with us today on Facebook. I want to welcome you all. I know we've been on here now for about 18 minutes already. We're on Instagram as well and on YouTube. So if you have any questions about being an author, writing a book, or anything like that, please ask them right now. We're going to be on for about another 10 minutes. And we'll address those questions. A question had come in this morning saying, here's a couple questions that have already come in that I'll address for you. One question is, what if I don't get my book done in 26 days? Well, ultimately, it does come down to you, whether you're going to follow through or not, but you don't have to do it in 26 days. So yes, the course is all online. Yes, you will have access to the entire course content, and you will be able to work at your own schedule. So you don't have to do it in 26 days. So for example, one lady wrote in and said that she is going to join the author marathon, but believes that she may not write the book until a little bit later. And that's perfectly fine. You can sign up now, be a part of the author marathon, join in with us on day one when we start the writing process, which will be July 6th, or you could just sign up for the program. You'll have all the content. You can refer to it later. Another question that was asked is a question on how much access do I get to you, to me, meaning me, like how much access do I offer? So here's what we're doing for the author marathon is we are doing scheduled open Q&A calls throughout the 26 days. We're going to do 4 of them. They'll be on Wednesdays at different times because we have people from all over the world that are getting on the author marathon. We're getting people registering right now. And so even if you can't get on the calls, the Q&A calls when they're scheduled, but you have a question, we've made it available that you can submit your question, and they will all be addressed during the open Q&A call, and we record all the open Q&A calls. So you'll definitely have access to all the recordings, and you'll be able to go and listen to the recordings a little bit later. All right. Another question that came in is a question that says, what if I don't know what to write about? Well, that's fine. We actually have a class. There's a segment that's being delivered that's also talks about what do you write about? What, what kind of ideas can you come up with? So this will inspire you to come up with an idea of what to write about. Another question that came in is, what if I want to write more than one book? Well, that's great, because what happens is once you've written your first book, you will be inspired very likely to write your next book as well. So you can write as many books as you want. And frankly, we're doing this 26-day marathon in the format that we're delivering it, so that people will get into action, stay in action, and complete their book. But also, you may find that if you get started and you start writing, you may finish your book like my client Susanna did in a matter of a week. And I wrote I don't know what book it was, but I wrote one of my books on a weekend. So could you get the book done or completed sooner than 26 days? Definitely you could get your book done sooner than 26 days. Other questions that have come in are questions about, well, what happens after the book is written? We'll give you suggestions on what to do after the book is written. Other questions have come in. Do we have editors like on staff that we could recommend? We definitely have editors that will recommend. They're not on my staff, but they're available, and we'll make recommendations for editors as well. So all of that will be there. There's going to be a lot of content, a lot of lesson, but the nice thing about the way that we've constructed it is there's almost like bite-sized chunks that you can see. It's very clear. It's like a menu, right? When you look at a menu, it's very clear on what you're going to get, and then you can make a decision on where you go while you're in the program. But it's going to be exciting. And the other thing is, the prerequisites for the program is very simple. Here's the prerequisite for getting into the author marathon. Do you have a desire to write a book? Even if you don't know how, even if you've never written one before, even if you have no knowledge, that's all you need is desire. We definitely have many people that have registered for the author marathon that have already written books. We definitely have people that have already written their books that are going to be in the program. The reason why they joined the author marathon, even though they're already authors, is because they want to write their next book. And they want to do it in a timely manner. And I know how dedicated you have to be to get your next book done. It really does come down to a philosophy of having the right attitude, as well as disciplining yourself and understanding what's required to get there. So if you've already written a book, but you want to write another one, and you want the encouragement and the push or the nudge and the inspiration to get your book done, that's going to be a big part of what we're going to be doing as well, because every day throughout that 26 days, you're going to be getting some guidance and some inspiration and some pushing and pulling and prodding, and all done with love, of course, so that you're going to get to where you want to go, which is completing and writing your very, very first book. Okay, so I'm just going to check over here and see if we have any other questions that may or may not. Oh, here we are. Okay, great. All right, the question just came in here. It actually came in to me. So Celine, you probably won't even see it, but the question just came in, and it was a question that I have already answered. So maybe I didn't answer it effectively. So please allow me to elaborate. And that is, the question says, what if I don't get it done in 26 days? If not, that's okay. So what we'll do is, for anyone that enters the author marathon, yes, you're going to have full access to the entire content of the program. And what that means is that write your book in the author marathon, or don't get it done in the author marathon, you can continue working on it in the month of August if you want. Or let's say you get into the author marathon and you decide in the month of October you want to write another book. Can you go back into the author marathon and look at all the content there and do another book? Absolutely. What you won't have in the months going forward is the open access to me, unless you're in another program that I have called the Complete Author Program. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but the Complete Author Program does give you 6 months access to open Q&A calls with me, where I can address any questions that you may have. So I've worked with a wide variety of authors, and here's another question that's quite often asked is, well, what type of book would this work with? Now, as I said earlier, the author marathon is big, and certainly write a fiction book. We'll give some guidance on writing fiction as well, but this is primarily a nonfiction type of program. It's really what it's designed to do. I've never written a fiction book myself. I've researched it. I did some writing when I was in school just because I loved it. Fiction type of writing, story kind of writing. But nonetheless, this is really designed around nonfiction authors. But I really want to encourage you. It's such a blessing to write a book. Oh, I don't think I finished that story about my son. I didn't. Okay, so lost my train of thought. So earlier I was talking about when my son had come home from school, and all my books are on the bookshelf, and his friends asked him, like, did your mom write all these books? Because they could see my name was on the spine of many books, and my books have been translated into many languages as well. And so on our bookshelf were my books in Russian and Italian and German and Chinese and all these other languages. And so my son very proudly answered, yes, they're my mom's books. And one of his friends said, wow, she speaks all these languages. So it was kind of funny because no, I don't speak all those languages, but my book is translated or books are translated into multiple languages and sold all over the world. So there's a great sense of pride as well when you write your book. Another wonderful blessing of creating the book that you're thinking of writing is books live long after the author has left the earthly plane. And I was thinking about Wayne Dyer this morning, and Wayne Dyer was a prolific author. He had over 30 books. Many of them were on the New York Times bestseller list. He was a client of mine. He wrote a book called Inspiration, Your Ultimate Calling, and I helped put that book on the top of the bestseller list as well, because I specialize in internet marketing for authors. And Wayne Dyer, died a few years ago, and he's passed on from this earthly plane, but his books live on. Louise Hay, who started Hay House Publishing, which is one of the biggest publishing houses in the world, especially in the self-help genre. I mean, she has passed on from this world, but her books will live on for many, many years. I remember buying her book, You Can Heal Your Life, back in the 80s when my father had been diagnosed with cancer. And I was very much into holistic healing and studying holistic healing as well. And so I began to study with Louise Hay. And so even though she's passed on, her legacy lives on. It lives on through her books. The ones that she wrote, it also lives on through her business and the ones she published. Louise Hay's company actually published 4 of my books. And so that's another blessing, a great gift. I'm working with a couple authors right now that are writing books that they are writing for their children because they want to leave a message, the best things that they've learned, the greatest lessons that they've ever learned. I have one author that I'm working with where he's writing, I suggested this to him, that he write love letters to his daughter. And he's doing them in different chapters of things, valuable lessons that he wants to leave her with. Now he's still on this earthly plane, and he's around, and he'll be around for a while. But yet he really wanted to leave something and give her a gift, a great gift of himself. And so he's writing this book, Love Letters to his daughter, and maybe he'll even call it that. I mean, it's just a beautiful idea, and I'm certain it's something that many people would benefit from. Okay, I think we're going to just wrap it up in a minute. We have one more question that has come in by Bridget. She says, a children's book fiction, but about our mind, mental faculties, etc. Is this an idea for the program? You said maybe not children's books. Well, what I'm thinking is, the reason why I said that, Bridget, is because it's 26 days to write your book. So typically a children's book can be done in a few hours. I mean, it's not a long process. Maybe you could write a series of children's books over 26 days for sure. But, I have one client of mine. I've worked with many children's books authors, by the way. Many children's book authors have taken my programs. But I remember one time working with a lady who had a desire to write children's books, and she wrote 3 of them in a day. So that's why I said that. So the author marathon is to help people get their books written. All right. That's the idea behind the author marathon. Yes, I do have another program called the Complete Author Program. And think about it, complete. So it's the writing of the book, it's the publishing of the book, it's the self-publishing of the book, it's getting an agent, it's all everything that you would want and need to know about being an author, as well as creating a bestseller, New York Times bestseller. All of that is in the Complete Author Program. But we have many people who are in the Complete Author Program now who have also registered for the author. Reason, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, is because they want to get their next book written. And that's the idea. It's going to be like a gun going off on the 6th of July. And it's like, time to write. And there's going to be lots of encouragement, a lot of fun, and some rewards at the end for writing the book, of course. And so that's the idea behind it. All right, everyone. Well, it was a pleasure to be here with you again today. Join us for the Author Marathon. We'd love to have you there. Love for you to get your wonderful piece of art, which is your book, out there in the world. And I would love to help you accomplish that goal. You may or may not have even been thinking about it before, but I really want to encourage you to think about it. I believe writing my book was the best thing I ever did for my business. Absolute best thing I ever did for my business. It's really made a big difference. And it was certainly an extremely, exceedingly beneficial thing to do for myself as well. So, and of course, it's helped so many people. You know, I love getting the emails and the comments and the little videos and messages from people that are reading my books and just sharing with me the difference it's made in their lives. So if you're into making a difference in the world or into someone's life or many people's lives, I want to encourage you to join us for the Author Marathon. All right, everyone, have yourself a wonderful day. As you can see, it's a beautiful day here at the lake. I'm so happy that we were able to connect together today in this way, in this wonderful venue. And I look forward to seeing you again in the very near future. So thank you so much. And Celine, thank you for being so amazing and for being here and so responsive and for letting everyone know the links that are needed. And I really appreciate you. I appreciate all of you guys as well. And I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.